All right. Well, I'm David Crozy. This is Laurie Ryherd, and I want to welcome you to watching this video. If you're watching this, you're a business owner or you're somebody in a business who has been elected as the Wellness Programs Manager. And so your job is going to be to start to reach out to area businesses and basically do business to business sales. Get your company in there for a lunch and learn. And so this is things that our company has had great success with, my chiropractic office. And it's something that we did a lot of trial and error. But anytime I get a chance to talk to an expert, I feel like I get some valuable information. And so about a year and a half ago, Laurie was in here. She does business to business sales. And I asked her just this really simple question. I said, how do you follow up and not feel like you're nagging these people? And her answer, I remember you said something to the extent of, well, every time you leave a voicemail or talk to the person, let them know that you're going to call again. And that way they expect the call. And if they really don't want you to keep calling, they're going to tell you at that point, no, I really don't want to hear from you.
Right.
And that was valuable information. I went to my wellness programs manager and that we added that to our routine. And so more recently, I asked Laurie if she'd be willing to come in and just give us some advice on how she would have success with these getting in, providing lunch and learns, attending these companies' health fairs. So, Laurie, why don't you tell me a little bit about your background in business to business sales?
Yeah, I've never thought of myself as a salesperson, but actually graduated in the arts. My major was graphic design, and my intent was my first job out of college was working for a greeting card company. The intent being that I would learn that business and design my own line of greeting cards. And I worked in a number of different areas within the company and just realized that I loved sales. I loved the communicating with people, just the developing relationships. I really believed in what I was doing in this company. It was called Recycled Paper Greeting. So they had an environmental bend. They did really cool alternative cards. And I love the strategy of sales. It was kind of like a big game of trying to win and, beat out your competitors and stuff like that. But I also really believed in what I was doing. So I just found my niche in sales, and that's where I've stayed. And I've always worked with creative companies, and it's just worked out.
All right, well, awesome. That's cool. And we talk a lot that when somebody's going to start doing this program, that they should start with why. So they should really recognize that,
Absolutely.
no matter what business you're in, I mean, you have this opportunity to improve people's lives.
Yeah.
And by going in there and sharing your message and your story and the unique ways that you can help them, I mean, we say get in the mindset that you're a hero by doing that. So it sounds like those companies you worked for, you always believed in the mission.
Absolutely.
So let's, I already, in this course, I have these outlined steps of how I tell people our most effective ways to get in, but I want to get your opinion. Let's talk through your recommended steps. So this wellness programs manager wants to start a relationship with a company where they provide lunch and learns or they attend the company's health fair. So they see this big building a couple miles away with a bunch of cars in the parking lot. All you see is the name on the side of the building.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your strategies in general to get in touch with that HR manager or the person in charge of wellness programs like Lunch and Learns and health fairs?
Yeah, the first thing, and first of all, it is not an easy thing, but what can set you apart from anybody else is really doing your homework on that company before you pick up the phone. And I'm a big user of LinkedIn. I'll go into LinkedIn, I'll first, plug in, do a company search on that particular company. And then you can usually say, see on the far right, it will tell you how many employees are there, and you can click on that. And that can be daunting with, huge companies, but sometimes that's what you have to do to find out, who the C-level managers are, or who the, healthcare people are, or see if you have any connections with that company. And just do your homework. I try to find out what the company is about, and try to figure out what I am offering, how is it going to benefit them and their employees. So I do a search on LinkedIn. I also go to their website, and that can be a huge source of information because a lot of these larger companies, because of security reasons, aren't putting a lot of information out there. It's not as easy to get phone numbers and emails like it used to be. So I'll go to their website and typically they're not going to have the names of the people out there, but if you read their blogs, you'll see quotes from certain people that will help you connect to those people, or quotes from CEO so-and-so, and things like that. And again, just kind of going to find their mission statement and see kind of what they're about, and again, how what you're doing pertains to them. And that does a couple of things. It makes sure that you're on the right track, really seeking out that company, but also that, so that helps you prioritize on who you want to get a hold of, but just making sure that you're both on the same page for what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then once you get that information, talk us through your first step to, are you gonna pick up the phone? Are you gonna email? What would you recommend doing?
I always start with the phone. And
that's what we say too.
Yeah, always start with the phone. And email just gets lost in the shuffle. Your stuff, if it's a first message, can end up in spam. So I'll pick up a phone, and I'm always, it's always a very, very soft call. Usually leading out with, I know you're really, really busy, but this is what I do. And hopefully they'll give you your name, their name when they answer the phone, and I'll say, Christine, I know you're really, really busy, but this is what I'm doing. This is who I'm looking for. Can you make a suggestion? And sometimes they'll put you right into voicemail. And if that happens, I never, ever leave a message, because you will never get a call back. So what I'll typically do is call back. Chances are that the person you talk to will answer the phone. If not, if it's someone else, just say, hey, I just talked to Christine, and she was going to put me in contact with your wellness director, but she wasn't in, and I've got a lot of information, so maybe could I get their email and send it to them so they can look at it at their leisure and things like that. And I've never been told no, and that's kind of like that is just a gold mine of information, because once you get an email, you can kind of figure out other people's emails based on how they structure their email. And I always try, I believe in what we call in my business top-down selling, and that is start with people. If they don't have a wellness director, start with C-level managers, because they will get that information to the appropriate person. So you don't want to start with someone who may not be in a position to make those decisions, because then it's kind of insulting to them if you go to someone else. And does that make sense?
It does. Again, this is great talking to you. What's a C-level manager? I don't actually know. Is that Is that high level, or is that?
Yeah, like a CFO. It wouldn't be. Yeah, COO, Chief Operations Officer. Just anyone that sounds like they'd be in a position to make decisions, and those folks are above the wellness managers, and you might have an initiative that they hadn't thought of, and they would get that information to a wellness manager and things like that.
Okay.
So.
Wow, that's valuable advice. So even our chiropractic office, you say, if we were having trouble getting a hold of somebody, try to get a hold of somebody that you actually see them on that highest level on the website? Yeah,
and I would link it. I would link it back to, I noticed your mission statement was this, and I really feel like I could help you with that. Right now, the business world is so competitive for employees, retention of employees, that they're looking for different ways to keep people, to get the best talent, in their company. So all of these things that you're offering are really a benefit to their people and a way for them to do that.
Sure. Yeah, and we talk a lot about just, to some extent or another, being able to name drop. So, I mean, if we were to call Principal, we'd be able to say, we've done these programs at American Equity and these other companies, and we thought you might be interested in that. So, I mean, that's something, I talk a lot to the people out there, building that resume, that, your testimonials that you're coming in and providing valuable service. I guess then when you talk to a higher level person, to one extent or another, you could say, hey, we're helping a bunch of people around town.
Right.
So, very cool.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Let's say you get to talk to somebody once, and then you try to follow up, and you keep hitting voicemails. How would you handle that?
Yeah, I would. If you talk to the person once, I would just say, hey, I'm just following up on our last call and wanted to see if you got a chance to think about, what we had discussed, things like that. If you keep hitting a wall, I would mail something, and I would do it on really good quality cardstock or whatever. Keep it brief, but keep it, make it interesting. I'd hire a professional, someone that can, handle putting together a package nicely, and, that's full of your information and contact info and what you're trying to accomplish, and then keep following up, because it does a couple of things. It's people, like, at first it's like, oh my man, they're calling again, but then they also start to think that this person must really believe in what they're doing, that they keep calling me, and that they aren't, put aside. And just every time you call, just say, I know you're busy, because sometimes people feel guilty about not returning calls, and we're all human and we want to be nice to people. And so just, kind of give them an out on that, and just say, I know you've been swamped, and, just want to follow up. So.
Awesome. Yep, that's lines up exactly with what I emphasize in some of the other videos too. Okay, so we occasionally run into a situation like we see a big building down the way, we see tons of cars in the parking lot, where we know that it's like a customer service center, or it's like a life insurance. There's a bunch of employees in there that have health insurance, they have back problems and neck problems. We'd love to go in there and talk to them, but we cannot find a local number. And I know that my wellness programs manager, Sherry, she's tried calling national numbers. I mean, do you have any tips if you're having trouble getting in touch with the local person? It's kind of an internal facility. Another example would be like a UPS. It's like their airport. We know there's a ton of employees that are breaking their backs out there at the airport.
Right.
But do you have any advice for getting a hold of the hard to get a hold of places?
Yeah. Well, that's first of all, you have to figure out where their home base is. If you're hitting a wall locally, then you need to find out where their home base. I know locally in Des Moines, like Nationwide, is based out of Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
So I would start doing a search there and just say, I'm based out of Des Moines, and I know you've got this office on such and such location, and I know that we could help the people working there. And usually it's just a matter of finding the home office and then kind of going through this, the same steps that I just discussed. Try to get an email, try to get a phone number, try to talk to a gatekeeper, and try to get in through saying, what, I didn't want to leave him a voicemail because there's a lot of information. Would it be okay to email them? And again, that's kind of your segue, into talking to someone. If that doesn't work, keep following up with mailings, because those mailings will go to someone.
Okay.
So.
Okay. That sounds good. Okay. Oh, I was just talking with Sherry, our wellness programs manager. Let's say there's a business down the road. It's a small business, family owned, 20 to 50 people range. Mm-hmm. And you call and you get a hold of the front desk person that's kind of functionally the office manager, and they just tell you like, oh, we don't really do, you ask for the person that does lunch and learns and health fairs, and they say, well, we don't really do those kinds of things. How would you respond? What would you do in that situation?
Yeah. Well, I would probably tie that into similar larger companies that are doing what they are doing. And maybe if you have an example, to use that company as an example and say, such and such business has found the benefit of doing that, and we'd just like to talk to you about that. Now, when you do make that next call to follow up on that or further the discussion, it could be money. A lot of these companies may be new, or because they're smaller, they may not have the money to do it, or they think they don't have the money to do it. But if you can get them to kind of see the light per se, and that how fewer employees would be calling in sick or not showing up for work because their back is thrown out or whatever, hopefully they'll see the benefit to what you're offering. So it's just really trying to make them understand what you do a little bit better and how you would benefit them.
Sure. No, that sounds great. And when Sherry and I talked about this the other day, we said, well, basically, even if that person at the front desk or the person that's kind of in the office manager role says we don't do that, they're not really in the position to make the decision. So we would. I told Sherry the other day. I mean, be prepared to say, can I talk to the business owner? Can I talk to the actual? Again, you said going for the C level, but in these smaller companies, going for that next level up and saying, just because you haven't done it in the past doesn't mean they're not open to do that.
Exactly.
So that's what Sherry and I did a little tweak there, and I said, if there's some companies that you've just taken that front desk person's word for it, let's kind of reconsider or revisit that and really try to get through and say, they haven't been doing it because nobody's asked, quite possibly.
Right, and they just look at it as another expense and how
not
how it can't, save the money in the long haul.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you've kind of gone over this a little bit, but do you have any tips to stand out compared to other people who are reaching out to them? So we do truly, just to give you some frame of reference, in this community, as a chiropractic office, there are other chiropractors that call and offer to do lunch and learns. Some of the things that I coach the people that have joined this course to do, we do an amazing meal from like the best restaurant in town. We have a bunch of talks that would be unique compared to the other ones. But do you have any advice to stand out if they're getting, to one extent or another, bombarded by these different, chiropractors or their business type asking to come in?
Right. Without a doubt, educating yourself on what they're doing and what their mission is. It's like I said at the beginning, doing your homework on that company. Everything should be about them. When I started in sales, it's like I really got excited about having my name at the top of a list and being the best and all of that. But really, I found more satisfaction out of just helping people, like seeing that what I had suggested made them more successful. And that made me feel a lot better about what I was doing. It's like if you do all the right things, the money will come. That is my biggest philosophy. But I think there are a lot of people that are not strong salespeople, and really that's what you're doing, even as a chiropractor, just selling your services. And so I would just know them top to bottom, read what you can. If you're not getting business journals, read those. You might want to check into joining your local chamber of commerce. I belonged to a Rotary club for a while because people are more apt to do business with people that they know and they've developed a relationship and trust. So those are all just little things that you could do, or even joining some kind of community group, like Meals from the Heartland in this area is huge. And it's amazing what people you meet doing those kinds of projects. So Habitat for Humanity is another one, and you meet some amazing people, doing those types of things. So just all sorts of just creative things that are basically good things.
And as far as knowing their mission and using that to make you stand out, it's just when you first pick up the phone, or you would just say, I see that your three principles are this, and one of your missions is employee empowerment, and so, or how would you show me how, or give me an example of how you drop it into your initial or follow-up calls?
Well, what you just stated was a great example. Just saying, I noticed in your mission statement that this and this and this, and just kind of reflect what you're doing back to them. Or you could even say, I was reading the business journal and notice this, that you were participating in this, and I thought that was really cool, and thought that we might be a good fit for working together, and this is why. So just whether it's a blog, an article, a mission statement, something you picked up in the news, you can all it makes you look like you really know what you're talking about. So
no, I can see that. Things. I can see that would really make a person be like, whoa, it would wow that person on the other end. All right, so Laurie, do you have an example of a time you followed up for a long time and finally got the deal?
Yeah. None of the sales that I have ever been in have been short-term sales. They're all long-term sales. So, and a lot of times, I've faced a lot of rejection. Like you think you're going in the right direction, and then you find out that it didn't work out, and you can't figure out why. And I'll sometimes learn down the road that they had a relationship with another person doing what you do, and or just weird, quirky things. There are a lot of things you can control, but some things you can't control. But my average cycle is like 18 months.
Wow.
Working with architects and things like that. It's like you have to plant the seed. You have to keep watering it, and then hopefully everything comes to fruition when the time is right. So be prepared, for rejection, but don't let it get you down. Just kind of look at it as a motivator to keep going, that you're just kind of a source of help that they aren't aware of yet. So
Sure. Well, that's a powerful thing to hear. I mean, our experience for you out there is that, we'll call some companies and we might be in to do a lunch and learn 3 weeks later. But I can think of multiple companies that we followed up over the 2 and 3 years,
Right.
got up to Lauries' average. And then we came in and they were so wowed by our presentation. Again, when you come in and you do a lunch and learn, we always bring flowers to the person that organized it.
Oh,
And
that's something I haven't
yeah,
thought of.
no,
So that's a great
a
idea.
$15 base for the person that
Great
organized the
idea.
lunch and learn, and you just you start the presentation. I want to thank Cindy who organized this, and everybody in the room just goes and they just think the world of you. And
I am so stealing that.
yeah, you
It's
should.
a great idea.
You should, because you could bring the best meal in town, and that's something that they remember is like, wow.
Yeah.
And it opens a door. Then when you call them up next year, they just remember that you were the
Right.
one that was actually that thoughtful. They got the vase up on their desk for a week, and so for a week they're thinking, everybody's, where'd you get the flowers? Oh,
And
it
trust
was
me,
Laurie.
nobody does that.
No.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's a really cool thing, and
Mm-hmm.
seriously, I'm doing that.
Sounds good. Well, I'm glad I could give you something valuable. Okay. I'm going to be honest. You mentioned LinkedIn, and we don't, in my current version of the training, again, we're recording this in 2019, but I don't really teach people how to use LinkedIn at all. And the reason for that is because as a chiropractor, I set up a LinkedIn profile and I hadn't accessed it for like 6 years. So tell me a little bit more about the value of LinkedIn. Are these
Oh.
people actually all using LinkedIn? Would the HR managers at these companies all be using LinkedIn?
Without a doubt.
Really?
Because it is a huge job seeking, avenue, or when you're looking for employees, a lot of people are using LinkedIn, and just, right off the top, get the business, level of it. If I'm in my office, I use LinkedIn every day.
Really?
After I do a lunch and learn, and I don't know if you do this, but I get a list of everybody's name, their email, their phone number, and then I will reach out to them through LinkedIn. And this is really time consuming, but it's really valuable. And I will send them a note through LinkedIn. Hey, thanks for attending my lunch yesterday. I'm really glad you were able to make it. And they'll respond back, or for the most part, or sometimes they won't. But everybody will definitely accept my
Oh my God.
yeah, my link. So it's like you build up this huge network, and then as you post something on LinkedIn, like, hey, we're starting this at the clinic, all of those people in your network see what you're posting.
Oh my God.
And then if they comment on it or like it, then everyone in their
Sure.
network sees it. So it's a huge tool, and it's wonderful because you don't get all the political stuff and all the other garbage that you don't want to see. So I use it a lot.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well,
I like it.
I know there's a bunch of chiropractors that are like me, that were just like, I don't find value from it, but that's a huge piece of advice there. I guess. Well, just to confirm one more time though, is there ever a time where you would try to contact somebody through LinkedIn, either before you pick up the phone, or if you're hitting their voicemail, would you use LinkedIn at that situation to try to connect with them and follow up? Does it play into that part of your strategies at all?
Occasionally, if I can't get through, I will find out, because on LinkedIn, you can do a company search, or you can do a people search. So if I'm not sure who the appropriate people are, which you probably won't, then I do a company search for the company that I want to contact, and their employees should come up. They'll say they have 138 employees working here, and then you can click on that and you'll get a list of all the employees, and they'll tell you if it's company owner, principal, you know, HR, who, you know, wherever they're involved, and that's going to tell you a lot about who you need to reach out to. And if you haven't been successful at that point, then I will go to a principal of the company and just say, you know, hey, so and so, you know, I've been, you know, reaching out, trying to get a hold of you, and I'd love to talk to someone about how we could help your employees or whatever. And just say, can you, you know, tell me who the appropriate person, you know, is or would be, and hopefully they'll get back to you. And in most cases, you know, I have gotten responses to that. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a really valuable tip as far as just I know that most chiropractors are not utilizing that, but that could be a very beneficial way. Obviously, every time that one of our potential patients sees us, it makes them one step closer to coming in as a patient. It just keeps it top of mind.
Right, and just a forewarning, you want to keep that brief and to the point, but very soft sell, because I'll get that stuff through LinkedIn. Like people wanting to sell me their marketing tools or strategies or whatever, and if it's too long, forget it. I'm just not going to read it.
Okay, so Laurie, this video is directed at people who they've never done anything resembling cold calling. You and I talked that there's a generation of people that potentially almost all their communication has actually been using text on their phone. I mean, they don't even have phone calls with their parents, their grandma. They never pick up the phone. So the idea of picking up the phone is scary. It's just something new. I don't know, speak to them about just mindset, any advice that you could give somebody that's saying, like, you know, I've answered the phone a few times here in this chiropractic office, but I've never reached out.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it is all about mindset. And you, I wouldn't think that they'd be working for you if they didn't believe that chiropractic was a benefit. So I would hope that would be the first step. You've got to believe in what you're doing. It's like I said earlier, you know, I've been in sales my entire life, but I couldn't sell just anything. It's got to be something I believe in, or that I know is going to have a positive impact. So, you know, you just have to keep reiterating that to the person that is making the calls. And rejection is hard for anyone. And you just have to know that people are not going to respond immediately. That it's you've got to build a relationship, you've got to build trust, and that all takes time. You don't meet someone on the street for the first time and just automatically trust them and they, you know, don't become your friend. And it's the same way with making these calls. So you've got to believe in what you're doing, know that what you're doing is going to help them, and just keep at it.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And I mean, you can confirm this, but you know, based on talking to my wellness programs manager, if you're sitting out there, you might have this fear that people would respond a little bit like when you get a cold call at your house. Which, when you get a cold call at your house, if you were sitting in a call center making cold calls, I mean, you could run into somebody in a home situation that they have an air horn and they're sick of all the political calls. In business-to-business calling, the person that you're calling reflects on their company. And if they're going to say no, they just are like, no, we're not interested right now. Based on talking to my wellness programs manager, they said 1 out of every about 200 people is a tiny bit rude, but they're more just kind of short and snipey, like, you know, well, no, we just don't do that. You know, a tiny bit of shortness in their voice. I know one time one of my employees got laughed at because, again, we're a chiropractor, but she called Des Moines University, which is an osteopathic school, and they have all their providers that actually do osteopathic manipulation. And she asked if they'd like us to come in and do a lunch and learn, and she got laughed at because they were like, we already have a bunch of people that do the same thing you do, was this lady's mindset. So kind of laughed at her. But, I mean, people aren't rude. They just say, we're not interested right now.
Right.
I mean, is that your experience?
Yeah, and if someone does something like that, I will typically kind of turn it around in a very nice way, and just say, you know, it sounds like I caught you at a bad time. You know, would you mind if I sent you something? I mean, and that's where I would send them the packet of information. Sure. And, you know, yes, it's more costly to do that, but sometimes, you know, when they really see what you can do and who you've helped, if you can get testimonies from some of your clients and things like that, that is a huge benefit, you know, because chances are that they know someone, especially with all the community work that you do.
Sure.
So, you know, all of that's a benefit.
Awesome. Is there, I guess I just jump and ask you if there's any other advice you have for these people that are trying to become proficient at business-to-business sales and have success
Yeah.
with this?
Well, we talked about mindset, but one thing I didn't touch on, and I've had a couple of really, really great mentors, and they've mentioned a couple of things to me that have always stuck, and I think it's so true. They said, you know, as you're talking to people, smile, because the tone of your voice just naturally changes when you're smiling. You sound happier. You sound more uplifting, and stand while you're making calls. You know, we all know that getting up and standing during the workday is kind of a better thing anyway. So I have a sit-stand desk in my office, and I'll get up and I'll walk around a little bit while I'm making the calls, or calls, and it just automatically kind of energizes you. So I look kind of goofy, you know, I've got a smile on my face. I'm talking to no one except the person on the other side of the phone. But anyways, I think it's just you know, strikes kind of a positive chord.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. It's good to remember those little things make a difference.
Yeah.
And so, all right. Well, yeah, I think this is a super valuable tip. It sounds like, I mean, I feel like I got a lot out of it, things that we can implement, and certainly people watching get a lot out of it. It sounds like you got one little tip there to
exactly. I'm thrilled.
the flower vase. Yeah, it goes above and beyond.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for listening. Laurie, thank you so much for
thank you.
allowing me to interview today and for all the great advice.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Good luck, folks.